Hi, thank you very much for coming along for session 6, Catalysing Growth in Oxfordshire. My name is Patrick Whetter. I'm a partner and head of real estate in Oxford at Freeths Solicitors. Today's session will be emphasising placemaking as a driver of economic success, community value and global competitiveness. Now, end of last week, I was just thinking about what we're going to talk about, themes, strands. And then on Sunday, I did the town and gown race. I can see a few people here did the 10K town and gown race. And it kind of gave me a few ideas and directions. It was a long, hot day, too long, too hot for me. So I went to the Lamb and Flag, had a nice cold beer, great. Walked back to my car in Walton Street, walked up St Giles, walked up Banbury Road and Wistock Road. And in that 5-minute journey, we passed St John's College. We'll come on to those later. I crossed the road. I passed the Allison Institute of Technology and their refurb of Eagle and Child. We'll come on to those later. We passed Green Templeton College, the Bravatnik School of Governance, Oxford University Press. And in that sort of 3, 4, 5-minute journey, I just sort of started thinking about looking backwards at the history, the rich history of Oxford. You've got the abundance of historical architecture, but also you've got the future. You've got world leadership in science technology. We've mentioned EIT. We've got other people around. We've got Moderna. We've got AstraZeneca. All that brand Oxford stuff. So it's a really, really exciting place to be at the agenda at the moment. So let's talk about some more transformative projects shaping Oxfordshire's future at the moment. We're going to cover quite a few areas in quite a short amount of time. So we've got the revitalisation of the city centre. We've got emergence of Oxford North. We've got pressures and potential for planning, development of housing and sustainability. And we've also got the role of the visitor economy. So first and foremost, let's introduce our panellists. We've got an absolutely fantastic group of panellists here today. So we've got Tom Bridgman. I'm going to ask them to raise their hands just so we can know who they are. Tom Bridgman is the Deputy Chief Exec of Oxford City Council. He's responsible for place-based activities, including the city centre, planning, housing delivery, sustainability, and economic development. If that wasn't enough, he's also Director on the Council's 2 joint ventures, Oxford West End Developments, bringing forward the Oxpen site in the city centre, and also Bath and LLP, bringing forward urban extension on the eastern end of the city. Hi, Tom. Next, we've got Dominic Hare at the end. Dom is CEO of Blenheim Palace and Blenheim Estates. Blenheim is a purpose-led institution seeking to be the lifeblood of the local economy, to enhance lives of local people and share and protect Blenheim and its surrounds. In pursuit of this vision, Blenheim's got a number of interesting sides to it. It runs a large visitor attraction, a cluster of real estate businesses, land management businesses, and has a large development team. Next, we've got Victoria. Victoria Collett is Development Director at Thomas White Oxford, which is the development company of St John's College we've mentioned already. And they are delivering the Oxford North Innovation District with partners Ontario Teachers Pension and the developer Stanhope. The Oxford North Master Plan comprises 1 million square foot of labs, amenities and infrastructure, as well as for over 480 homes. So it's a huge, huge, exciting project. We've got Hayley Beer-Gamage, CEO of Experience Oxfordshire. Experience Oxfordshire is a nationally accredited local visitor economy partnership for Oxfordshire, working to support productive, sustainable visitor economy across Oxfordshire. Through effective national and global connections, Hayley and her team drive business to Oxfordshire that supports local communities and increases economic value. And last but not least, Ashley Maltman, Head of Planning at Pye Homes and Blenheim Strategic Partners. Pye is an Oxfordshire-based house builder and recently broke ground on 2 landmark projects, Hillrise in Woodstock and Wellbourne Garden Village in Hampshire. Blenheim Strategic Partners is the strategic land promotion arm of Blenheim Estate, leveraging its expertise in vision-led legacy developments to support landowners and estates in bringing forward residential communities. Okay, we've got a lot to cover, and I've just realised I didn't point our start time, so that's now done. Right, first question, we're going to look at some more big picture issues to start with, just to sort of ease the panel in gently. And this question, I think, probably to all the panel, if you want to give an answer. When you hear the phrase catalysing growth in Oxfordshire, what does that mean to you in practical terms? And Tom, as you're here, how do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, I think it means working in partnership I know it's a kind of maybe a bit trite and everyone will say it, but working in partnership both between the public and the private sector, but then also crucially in the public sector across central and all the tiers of government. And I think working in partnership and then and really good effective planning is at the heart of that. I mean, I think to get under the skin of what I think will catalyse growth in Oxfordshire, I think ultimately we need to fundamentally build more houses, and I think we need to grapple with that and the issues with that, but also the opportunities that come with it. And then linked to that, we need to deliver, ideally first, the infrastructure that's needed, and that's both the hard infrastructure in terms of the power and the water and the sewage, which is unfortunately a subject quite close to my heart these days, but also the soft infrastructure around education and skills development. So I think they're the fundamental piece. And I would add that I think that skills is something that we really need to up our game on here. I think if we can start to make the growth in Oxfordshire feel more relevant to a wider range of people across the county, then I think it starts to turn the dial in terms of where there is that anti-growth agenda, because development starts to feel like it's for people and it makes sense and their aspirations are raised. And I think that's something where I think we need to up our game. Okay.
And you mentioned infrastructure. Where are the gaps in Oxfordshire? And when I say Oxfordshire, I mean the city centre and the regions.
Well, I mean, I think, until very recently, we had a huge sewage treatment issue, and we still need Thames Water to step up and deliver those works. But that was holding back development in a nearly existential way. It was going to stop development for many years. We've worked as a partnership. That partnership, both between all the different layers of government and also the private sector, to affect change in that space. Power is the key. I mean, from a development perspective, power was before top of the agenda. Mm-hmm. Sewage maybe just nudged ahead of it, and now power is back big time in terms of people's ability, developers and landowners' ability to have confidence that the power supply that they bought already is going to be delivered. And then I guess more at a macro level, I think the work that we need to do around an effective public and active travel system is at the heart of joining up Oxfordshire and Oxfordshire's economy. And fundamental to that are the county's plans around traffic congestion management, which is the traffic filters, the zero emission zone, the workplace parking levy. That will be an 18-month experiment once Network Rail complete, hopefully, the Botley Road works in August. That presents a once-in-a-generation opportunity to deliver an improved bus network in and around the city and reprioritise road space towards active travel.
Thank you. Anyone else got any more comments on that? How does it look in practical terms? Tom. Oh, sorry. Ash.
So I just agree with everything that Tom said in terms of challenges from a house building perspective, an SME house builder, real challenge around delivery of infrastructure. That element of collaboration is fundamental for us to unlock those, a convening power of local government with business, with the universities and innovation. And I think, and ultimately, seizing those opportunities. And, for me, I think the speakers in the previous session talked about it. That opportunity with the Oxfordshire Mark is just something we really need to grasp and grab hold of and jump on it and really take it forward.
Great, thank you. Dom.
I was just going to add that Oxford is almost uniquely sort of landlocked by long-term institutions, and we may talk about that later, but it therefore, in terms of catalysing things, falls to those long-term institutions to put in place the vital preconditions for growth. And I think, to be fair, that tends to have happened. Things like Oxford North, the science parks, the business parks have been largely driven by long-term institutional owners, but we shouldn't kid ourselves. We have to align all those people because they can equally freeze out growth if they don't put their mind to it in the right way.
Good point. Yeah, really good point. Thank you. Okay, Tom, I'm going to monopolise you again. You mentioned about infrastructure and the city facing pressures. How do we turn that into an opportunity for regeneration and innovation?
Yeah, it's back onto the partnerships and planning point. I mean, not only is it constrained by institutional landowners, it's constrained by greenbelt, floodplains, and its townscape. And so what we do is really what we choose. The land is in scarce supply, so what we put on it, how much we put on it, where we put on it is really fundamental. So I think the first thing we need to know is connectivity. So the work we're doing around the Cowley branch line with the county and a number of landowners in that area to reconnect the southeast of Oxford to the city centre and onto London is fundamental. You know, that will unlock a significant amount of growth, both in terms of housing and employment. We also, from a connectivity point of view, focused, again, in partnership with County, this time with Network Rail, on the Oxford Station. Oxford Station is, quite frankly, an embarrassment, not only kind of because it's just a construction site that's never ending at the moment, but also, you know, as a gateway to a global city and indeed the county, it's not fit for purpose. It was built as a temporary station, I don't know, in the 70s, and it's still going. I was going to say strong, but that would be the wrong word. So you know, we're working really hard with Network Rail Property to master plan that, but that is like fitting a quart into a pint pot. You've got to deliver 2 new railway lines, which will deliver the connectivity we need. And in doing that, you've got to then find a new place for the buses and all the rest of it. So, but that is a absolutely fundamental part of turning the constraints that we have into an opportunity of creating a fantastic new gateway. And then I've already mentioned the traffic filters, which I think you know are controversial, along with the workplace parking levy and the zero emission zone. But like he said, doing nothing is just not an option. And if we want to have fast, regular, reliable bus services, not only in the city but coming into the city, we need to do something. And you know, I think we have a plan, and you know, that will be all things as long as the Botley Road and Network Rail can finish in August. That will be a plan that will be delivered over an 18-month trial period. I think. After connectivity, it's about getting the uses right. I think from a city centre perspective, and I'm jumping between city and city centre here a bit, but from a city centre perspective, we need a critical mass of people working and living in the city centre. It's very dominated by colleges and university and retail. Actually, you know, for a city centre, it doesn't really have a central business district. It doesn't have a huge number of people living in it. So one of our big priorities is Oxford West End. So Oxford West End includes the likes of Oxpens, Oseney Mead, Botley Road, County Hall now, as a site that will be coming forward for repurposing. And so there's a fantastic opportunity. I mean, if you look at it on a map, it's one of the largest city centre UK regeneration opportunities. It's like with Templar Square, Cambridge CB1, King's Cross. It's of that scale, and that will deliver the critical mass of employment and residential, along with the wider West End, along with a place like Oseney. And things are moving forward really quickly. We've finally got planning permission for the Oxpens scheme. We've got British Land bringing their scheme forward to planning this month on the Botley Road. We've got there's real momentum behind it. County Hall are in the process of finalising their plans for repurposing County Hall and moving to Speedwell. So that area of Oxford, I think, is going to fundamentally change and make the town centre a bit more resilient, because at the moment it relies a lot on retail, public sector and the universities. And then I think, you know, the growth opportunity along the Cowley branch line is huge. I've just come from giving a tour to the new chair of the Growth Commission around that area, and you know, every time I go, I'm blown away by the opportunity. The Ellison Institute is a £1 billion investment by Larry Ellison into the Oxfordshire ecosystem, and it's just going to be amazing. And they want to grow. You've got Arc Oxford, formerly the Business Park, and the Science Park, all long-term investors that really want to deliver, but they will deliver so much more if there's the Cowley branch line. And then you've got, we think, probably the opportunity for around 5,000 new homes on top of the 6,000 planned in the area. So getting that mix right and getting more people living in the city is really important. I'm conscious I'm talking a lot, so I'll try and speed up. But the next thing I think we need to do is make the city centre relevant to local people. I think I've lived in Oxford since 2012, and I'm still surprised at how little I use the city centre. I do go in, but I think it could be a lot more relevant to local people, and I think the covered market represents a real opportunity for that. We're investing £8 million into turning it into a bit more of a destination, live music, more food and drink to complement the retail offer. And I think that is an example of what we need to do with our city centre to make it thrive. I think one thing that drags the city centre back is its public realm. I mean, if you look up, it's amazing. If you look down, it's not where it needs to be. And again, I think that's something that we need to work on in partnership with the county council to deliver, major improvements. We've had some real wins. The work at Broad Street, starting with Broad Meadows, when we filled it with wildflowers, to the scheme that there's now. County have taken away the car parking, which I think has made a big difference. But where do we go next in that long-term scheme? We've just finished a scheme at St Michael Street, which looks fantastic. The scheme at Market Street, around the back of the market, is really working. So we know what we need to do. It's about more pedestrianisation or more pedestrian-friendly streets. I think Broad Street could become our fantastic civic square, which we don't have in Oxford, and that's there. And then I think, let's start where I finished really. We need to build more houses. We think we've got capacity in Oxford, the city, to deliver 450 homes a year.
We'll come on to housing in a moment, Tom.
But we just need to build. But we're being asked to deliver 1,000 by government. Yeah. So how do we do that? And we've got some ideas, but that's that. And then I think just conscious I've got Hayley sitting next to me.
But before we go on to that, go ahead.
Well, just if we get all that right, I think it makes it a much better city for tourists. So I think it's not that we're forgetting tourism. It's I think if we can get those fundamentals right, it's a better city. Yeah. Sorry.
No, fantastic. Really helpful. Why don't we move on to our second theme, which is placemaking and identity. So how do we balance heritage, innovation and community needs? I think at this point I'm going to bring in Victoria. Perhaps I might ask you this question. Oxford North is billed as a world-class innovation district. What's going to make it really stand out on the global stage?
Thank you. Is my mic working? Yeah, good. I'm not very good at shouting, except at my children, obviously. What will make us stand out on the global stage? Genuinely, it's because we're in Oxford. Let's be honest. Oxford's one of the greatest cities in the world on many metrics, and so that's what is going to bring people to Oxford. Once they've got here, Oxford North is attempting to bring together the old and the new, the elite and inclusivity, and create a place, bringing it back to placemaking, where people want to go and want to hang out. In the post-COVID era, it's really important that workplaces are great places to be, to get people to come in. There was a lot of talk when I joined the project about how labs were sort of working from home proof because scientists can't work from home. And I always thought, well, that's rather unfortunate that we're just relying on the fact that they can't work from home. Let's still make it an amazing place so that they want to come to work. And instead of feeling a bit sort of hard done by when they talk to their friends who are, sitting with a dog on their lap and putting the washing on in the lunch hour, actually make them feel glad that they go into work and they get to meet lots of exciting people and hang out in a really special space. So we've got a huge public park as the centre of the development. That's what makes us really stand out, is the way that we've designed the place centred around a park. That shouldn't just be great for our tenants and our immediate residents, but it should be something that brings the existing community in and helps us to stitch in to Wolvercott and Cutterslow, who are our neighbours. Because we have a really fantastic and quite ancient community that we're landing in, if you like. And we want to make sure that those people feel like Oxford North is for them. Actually, I'm going to stop there, because otherwise I'm going to cover all of my points right at the beginning.
Well, in that case, I'll come back to you on that then, please. Is placemaking in Oxfordshire bold enough? Are we playing it too safe in design, ambition, integration? And I don't know, Hayley or Ash, if you want to come in on that as well.
We've been sat on our hands trying not to derail the conversation too early. But when we go back to growth and a catalyst for growth, I think the first thing we need to agree on is that we want growth. And actually, where do we want growth and in what areas? So example, not surprising when you come to visitor economy, Do you want more visitors? Do you want more tourists? And, we're all guilty of walking around in the summer and, a big group of tourists will nudge you on the shoulder and you'll get very frustrated about it. But we've got to remember the value of tourism and the visitor economy. We welcome 30 million visitors a year to Oxfordshire. They spend 2.3 billion in the local economy, and that supports 40,000 jobs across all of Oxfordshire. So do we want a vibrant, growing visitor economy? Yes, absolutely we do. But what we want to do is influence the profile and the type of visitor that comes. So what we don't want is those short-stay visitors, which might get dropped off on a coach for an hour, run round, take lots of Instagram pictures, go away and not spend a bean in the local economy. What we want to do is really influence those that stay longer and spend more, increase dwell time, make sure there's a positive impact on the local economy. So I think we need to agree that we want growth and growth is important, and what areas do we want it? Again, when you look at the visitor economy demographic, domestic tourism is massively slowing down. It was really vibrant in the pandemic because we had to all love our locality and our country. And what has slowly happened is in a cost of living crisis, when supply chain and everything is going up, we are now actually a very expensive destination domestically in the UK. The loyalty has gone out the market. I'm sure everybody in this room is going off to Costa del wherever over the summer because it's cheaper to do so than sit on your doorstep. So we've got a challenge there. And of those, getting into the visitor stats, of the 30 million visitors that come to Oxfordshire every year, only 10% are international. But that 10% accounts for 50% of that £2.3 billion expenditure. Now, obviously we can get into carbon footprint and how they get here on aeroplanes and all of those sorts of things, but it's a really, really valuable part of the visitor economy and how we focus on it. And you're all visitors. We're here in Blenheim today. I presume that none of you live here on Blenheim Estate, because unless you do, you are all a visitor here to Blenheim today. So we're all visitors, so it's how we talk about it and how we nurture it and how we really value it that's important when we talk about growth in certain sectors.
Great. Yeah. We have genuine competitive advantage here. I mean, there are no brands I can think of known so widely across mega cities in China that I've never heard the name of than Oxford, the university, Blenheim Palace, and I have to say probably dominant Bicester Village. Yeah. And to not play to those competitive advantages is madness, and we see obviously the work that's been done across the board to bring Puy de Fou towards this area. Hopefully we'll come to this area. Again, I mean, this is a cluster of 4 world-class institutions that will power growth in Oxfordshire. And I think we can be very proud of the jobs that are created, and we need to create the conditions that support it. But as Hayley says, we need the kind of multi-day tourism that has greater economic contribution, but lower negative impact. And shortly, just before the pandemic, Hayley had sort of secured deals for more of the big tour operators to hub from Oxford, so that they were going from an Oxford base to London, to Stratford, to Windsor, to Blenheim, hopefully. And that, of course, puts so much more money into the Oxfordshire and the Oxford economy. And we work hard on initiatives to make sure that it isn't just the big 4, but that these act as kind of exemplars that pull tourism right across Oxfordshire, because there's so much to share.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Hayley. Thank you, Dom. We talk about Cambridge. What lessons can we learn from other UK and global cities in terms of placemaking and identity? We can talk about Cambridge, but there may be others. Victoria.
So when we were designing Oxford North, it is a master plan on, I'm afraid, greenfield land. But that's a good thing because we had a clean slate. And so we could go back to basics and say what makes a great place. And let's not just look at the UK and Cambridge. Let's go all around the world and see what makes a great community and a great place. And we did that, and we visited Torrey Pines in Boston, San Diego, also in the US, Stockholm, loads of cities. Our architects went everywhere. I'm not sure if it was on us, but anyway, they made the most of that. And so we've designed somewhere that is very much sort of internationally minded, but with a real Oxford flavour. And if I just talk about the quality of the design and the architecture a little bit, the first phase, I hope when you come and visit it later this year, you'll agree, it's really striking and really modern. You talked a lot about that need to provide modern buildings and interesting buildings that complement the rest of Oxford. And so we have brought that forward early in the scheme so that it creates a really beautiful place right on the edge of Oxford. So when people come into Oxford from that northern direction, the council called it the Northern Gateway to start with, and that was very much the aim of the scheme, was to create a striking gateway into Oxford that would really announce to people that you're in an innovative and exciting place. Because everybody knows what they'll find in the middle, the beautiful buildings and the skyline, dreaming spires. But that entrance was a little bit unprepossessing, shall we say. And low rise, low density, and yeah, I'm not sure you would have known that you were coming into Oxford previously. And so we put Oxford in the name of Oxford North. And we have, I hope, delivered on that vision for the council to create, that gateway into the city.
Great, fantastic. Thank you very much. I think we're going to move on to our third theme of the day, which is housing and community integration. You'll have seen the Labour government coming in last year and setting targets of 1.5 million houses in 5 years. That's quite eye-watering, especially given the economic headwinds and ambitions for decarbonisation. So there's a lot of pressure to build these houses without any compromise. Ash, perhaps I might direct this one at you. What does a future-proof housing strategy look like in Oxfordshire?
It can't just be about numbers. It's got to be about the quality that we're building and it genuinely meet the needs of what Oxfordshire needs going forward. As an SME house builder, we're operating in what is a incredibly complex maze of regulatory regimes at the minute, which is happening sequentially after each other, which isn't giving the industry the certainty that it needs and that allows it to deliver really good development at the end of it. And so that house builders need to be more positive in terms of placemaking. We have to get to a position where we reduce the time. Tom mentioned it earlier, we're in a housing crisis in Oxfordshire. We have to get to a position where we can allocate development and get it occupied far quicker than what we currently do. It's well over 5 years and close to 10 years on most of the major residential schemes. And there's an obvious gap in our view between when you allocate a site and when a site comes forward in a local plan. A local plan gets it allocated and then it's up to developers to bring it forward. And Tom mentioned earlier, there's huge amount of challenges that an SME house builder is facing from infrastructure. And we need certainly a more positive environment where local government is encouraging and using that convening power to bring it forward and positively get the applications through the system determined. I think previous speakers talked about the devolution, local government reorganisation. It looks like it could be a challenge. I hope that through that we get really good, effective strategic planning. The government are looking at that, and they're very much in the view that that's now back in fashion. I'm of a generation where we haven't worked in regional spatial strategies, and they were replaced with duty to cooperate, and they've not. It really wasn't an effective replacement. I think probably Oxford carry the scars of duty to cooperate more than others in local plans at the minute. And so we need effective strategic planning in Oxfordshire to address those big picture issues of housing and infrastructure and delivering those at the right time. And obviously local government reorganisation is fundamental, but businesses does not see local authority boundaries. So whatever happens, whatever scenario happens, we need an effective strategic planning mechanism to operate in Oxfordshire. Oxcomark, a huge growth potential for Oxford that we've sort of dabbled with, in and out with, and it's been in and out for so many years. I think we need to really grapple with it and really, it's a huge potential and opportunity for Oxfordshire. More sort of locally, how we have future-proofed housing and try to deliver sustainable development. We're part of the estate. We're a purpose-led organisation. One of our 10 goals is to be net zero by 2027 as a house builder. That's incredibly difficult. We're probably the most carbon polluting part of the estate. I think that's pretty obvious. So, it takes real strong leadership. There's going to be a carrot and stick approach in the industry. I think I'm really fortunate. I'm working with an organisation that's showing really strong leadership in sort of how they want to see house building. For us, and we talked about it, coming into Woodstock, depending on which way you came, you probably would have seen Parkview, which is one of our developments that's sort of 3/4 of the way through. That's been in planning and sort of first conceived back in sort of 2012. Originally, I found out it was promoted back in the 1990s by my colleagues, so it's sort of, it just shows you the time it takes, and that's 300 units. That's not really sort of, it's a drop in the ocean in terms of the housing need that we have in this area. But as an estate, we've got our legacy principles of how we see development coming forward, and Parkview was all about, it was fanatical about architectural detailing, and it was about being true to Woodstock, picking up all the architectural detailing. We've been on a journey through that, that's fair to say, and I think now our transition is, particularly with our 10 goals, is how we can take Parkview and turn it into a sustainable solution. Hill Rise, breaking ground on that in the north of Woodstock, and that's fanatically focused again on saying how can we do Parkview, but how can we layer on sustainability? So we're transitioning to a SIP timber frame construction, so low carbon method of structurally building the houses. It gives huge benefits in terms of speed of build, energy performance, and I think Liz Nicholson, although she's still around, she was talking earlier about how we brought her into the team, and Nicholson did a fantastic job for us in working with that open space and decarbonising that open space and going for a very low impact but estate, reflecting the estate's open space.
Fantastic. Thank you. That's brilliant. I'm just going.
That was a hint. It was a clear hint.
Richard's given me the eye. He's given me the eye already. Right. Okay. We're going to thank you very much for that, Ash. That's really fantastic. We're going to move on to visitor economy and the cultural value. Hayley. So this is you. So tourism is vital, but it can be contentious. It's a double-edged sword. How do we change the narrative from crowded city complaints to long-term prosperity?
Well, I think I've touched on that briefly already, but I think the other thing just to really reiterate is we've got to understand why the visitor economy is so important, and particularly as local residents, why it's so important. We wouldn't have the majority of the assets that we have locally if it wasn't for the visitor economy. Businesses wouldn't choose to invest in Oxford and Oxfordshire if it wasn't for the visitor economy and the volume of people that are coming in that have money to spend in those businesses, whether that is hotels, pubs, bars, cafes, workshops, nighttime economy, transport. It's a really, really broad area. And, as locals, we're really fortunate to have all of these assets on our doorstep, and we've got to nurture them. And visitor economy now is more important than ever, particularly in the cities and the towns areas, because the modern world is hybrid, right? So many people are working from home. And if you take something like the city in particular, you've got 4 really large organisations, 2 big academic institutions and 2 local authorities, where pre-pandemic, the majority of their workforce was city-based. Most of them now are hybrid to some extent. So you are losing a lot of that lunchtime cafe culture. Where is that spending going to come from? How can we keep these businesses going? Because if they're not supported during the week, they're not going to be there on the weekends when we have our leisure time. And the way to support that is having the visitor economy and bringing those visitors in and making sure that they have a welcoming experience. Because what also comes with Oxfordshire as a destination, and brand Oxford, absolutely, it has huge trigger recognition globally, but it comes with complacency. We are Oxford, we are Oxfordshire, people will come. Well, absolutely, no, they won't. It's a really competitive global and domestic landscape now, and if we are not competitive and put our head above the parapet and showing what we have to offer, all the wonderful history and heritage, but also all the new modern contemporary culture, events, programme, everything that we have, if we're not shouting about it and supporting it and making sure they have a top-notch visitor experience when they get here, they're not going to come, and they're certainly not going to return. And any visitor that comes and wants to come back is the best type of visitor, because we all know that if you have a good news story, you might tell a couple of people. If you had a bad one, you tell everyone, and it puts everybody right off. And that's why we're really proud of something that we launched called the Oxfordshire Welcome, which is a self-service pledge, which we've got visitor economy businesses from across Oxfordshire to sign up. We have over 220 now, and these are businesses which are saying we are committed to being a good business. We are doing the very best that we can under sustainability, accessibility, inclusivity, all the TIVities, they're all there, they're trying to support them, they want to do good customer service, but it's a commitment to being as good as they can be. And actually, if we can get more of those accreditations coming through, when we talk to buyers now, they are looking for accreditation, and we talk to buyers in the mice market, for example, who now will not book a visit if they don't have the Oxfordshire Welcome accreditation, because it's seen as a business that wants to do well and do good things. So, yeah, tip of the iceberg stuff on the visitor economy, but we need to nurture it.
Brilliant, brilliant. You can see
Totally.
you can feel the passion, can't you? You can feel the passion. Okay, one more subject before we finish: sustainability and long-term growth. Dom, you touched earlier on the role long-standing institutions can play in driving innovation and sustainability. How does long-term stewardship help drive sustained economic growth in your view?
It's a good question, and it's essential for it to be answered in this area because, as I said before, almost all the assets around this place are owned by long-term institutions, be that the universities, the colleges, estates like Blenheim, the councils, etc. And if we don't turn our resources over in pursuit of the only kind of growth, which is sustainable growth, then you will not get the living spaces, you will not get the power requirements. And to be clear, both of those things have to be sustainable and green because that's the law, as well as being morally right. What does give me optimism is I think those institutions have typically been pretty thoughtful about the way they approach such things. And if I contrast a speculative housing development that's not from a long-term institution, they'll have a red line round a patch of land and they will work hard to fill that red line with as many houses as possible because that's how you drive an economic return. And actually, there's nothing wrong with that. If our housing plans depend upon builders not making an economic return, we've got an even bigger problem. But I think what the benefit that we have as longer-term institutions is we frequently own the land around that land. So we don't just control the red line. We can start to build the kind of other infrastructure, whether that's social infrastructure, environmental infrastructure, that actually makes these places not just functional living environments, but places where people really want to live, and jobs follow people. Yeah. Most large employers do not set up where there's zero unemployed people or zero housing scope. So we talked earlier with Liz Nicholson about both this is a simple example, but the landscaping at Hill Rise, but also the 300 acres of new woodlands, 60.5 kilometres of new pathways, etc. Those things are adjacent, and that's not an accident. Yeah. It is vital that as we burden Woodstock with more housing, that we also provide the social and environmental infrastructure to make that work. And that's a kind of contrast to the approach that would be taken, with no disrespect, if Carla Holmes, love them very much, came along and built the same houses. You would not get that kind of sustainable approach, and you would not have such attractive assets. And I think that's the kind of model we pursue. I mean, the same is true of energy generation. Without energy generation, you won't have growth and new businesses. I come fresh from the scars yesterday of the first open floor hearings in the public examination of the Botley West solar farm. But again, and I regardless of the rights or wrongs and your views on these things, large-scale solar generation essential when practiced and delivered by long-term institutions who will own the land underneath for perpetuity and care very deeply about what happens to that land, not just today or in 20 years, but once that solar farm's gone. That makes a huge difference, and that's the sort of model that's pioneered right across this amazing city and county.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. That was such an eloquent answer to what seemed to be a short question, but thank you. That's brilliant. Right, we are out of time, so I'm afraid we're going to have to close it there. Apologies, we won't be able to take any questions from the floor. If you did have any questions, I'm having lunch in a minute. I'm here for the rest of the afternoon. I think some or all of our panel likewise, so please grab them over coffee, grab them over tea, grab them over lunch, and pick up any points. I'd just like to say to these panellists, it's been a bit of a rushed job this afternoon, but they've been absolutely fantastic. They've been honest and they've been insightful. Can we just give them a big round of applause, please? So, just to finish, I've been scribbling some notes down. So what am I taking away from today? So it's clear that Oxfordshire has the vision for investment and potential growth, but to truly catalyse growth, we need three things. And I think all of the people here have mentioned them today: bold placemaking, collaboration and integrated thinking, and a willingness to change old models. And I think the last one is really important. So look, we are a room of people. We are really talented people. We're passionate about Oxford because we're here. We're interested in growth because we're here. And I think as a collective, we've got a really, really strong voice, a voice we can use for good. So let's continue talking, let's continue collaborating, and let's help shape the future of Oxford for the residents, for the businesses, and for the visitors. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.